A rich businessman on a flight brutally mocks a veteran for his sweaty body odor. Shortly after landing, he gets a call from the hospital and tearfully regrets insulting the former soldier. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Dailydose, like, and share this video with your friends. Joseph Miller, 53, was proud of the bridal boutiques he headed across the city. Each unit boasted a vast collection of expensive designer suits, bridal gowns, and everything a person would want to make their wedding special. Climbing the ladder to success was not easy for the business tycoon. Born to poor parents who could barely make ends meet, Joseph never had a rosy childhood. Hunger and poverty taught him the value of money, and as he grew older, he began to think only about himself. He believed only those who fought for themselves without asking for help tasted success. And nobody helps for free without expecting benefits, he thought, and motivated himself. Ultimately, the fruits of his hard work arrived through a scholarship that catapulted him to the university without him having to pay a dime. Joseph studied hard and graduated summa cum laude. He stepped out to face the world, prepared to prove he could have everything people once said he could not have because of his poverty. Time slipped away too soon as Joseph devoted his heart and soul to reaching the peak of success. And he did it. He had everything he once dreamed of, a fortune that could easily last for generations, a beautiful wife, and an adorable son whose future Joseph had already decided. But Dad, I want to serve the country. Money is not everything, and after seeing my best friend Mark's dad, who is in the military, even I want to become a soldier, Kevin, 22, told Joseph. Joseph was taken aback because he wanted Kevin to take up the family business after him. He was tongue-tied and couldn't understand his son's choice. His love for Kevin exceeded the dreams he had for him, so he agreed and let him go. Joseph was proud of his son, though he missed him every single second. 3 years flew by, and the next big thing to happen was when Kevin and his wife Sally welcomed their first baby boy, Eric. Joseph was the happiest man after his grandson arrived, so he celebrated the joy by inaugurating a new boutique in another state. After attending an important meeting with a client in his new branch, he flew back to his hometown. Minutes after takeoff, a flight attendant showed Mr. Ahrens, a veteran with minor burn marks on his hands and face, a seat beside Joseph. Joseph's forehead wrinkled as he frowned, expressing discomfort. He covered his nose with a handkerchief and tried to stay calm, but couldn't anymore as the sweaty smell emanating from Mr. Ahrens' dress penetrated his nose and disgusted him. Joseph kept dusting his suit and smelled his blazer on more than one occasion to check if the sweaty odor had rubbed off on his suit. He could not control his temper and started yelling at Mr. Ahrens, who was coughing and signaling the attendant for some water. "You stinker! Get away from me! Go and sit somewhere else! My expensive suit will smell rotten because of your dirty and sweaty clothes! Get off this seat!" Joseph kept yelling at Mr. Ahrens as everyone aboard turned back and started whispering things. The flight attendant rushed to the scene and handed Mr. Ahrens some water, jumping in his defense. "Sir, please stay calm. You cannot be rude to a passenger." "This man smells rotten. I feel like throwing up. Take him away from here." "I apologize for the inconvenience, but, sir, you cannot say things like that and be rude to people," the attendant replied, leading Mr. Ahrens to another seat. The commotion settled as Joseph smirked and continued to read a magazine. An hour later, the flight arrived at its destination, and before the passengers could get off, the pilot made an announcement that made heads turn and applaud. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Before leaving, let's take this opportunity to thank 3 true heroes of our country we have on board today, veterans Mr. Murphy, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Ahrens." A loud round of applause filled the aircraft cabin as the 3 veterans, including Mr. Ahrens, rose to thank everyone. Everyone clapped but Joseph. His ego was hurt when he realized that he had mocked a former soldier who had dedicated himself to serving the country. He was ashamed of himself and got off the plane immediately. As he took his phone to call his driver to collect his luggage, he got a call from the hospital informing him of something terrifying that had happened to Kevin at the camp. "Mr. Miller, your son had met with a fire accident at the camp last week. We flew him to your city as it has the nearest hospital that gives best-in-class treatment to patients with burn injuries." "What?" Joseph was startled by the news. He immediately hailed a taxi to the hospital to meet his son, unprepared for the next big revelation he would witness. "Yes, sir. The ward is that way," the receptionist told a panic-stricken Joseph. He ran to the ward and barged in only to freeze in shock. Mr. Ahrens, the veteran he had mocked and called stinky, was standing beside Kevin's bed with a bouquet. What are you doing here?" Joseph exclaimed in shock and was interrupted by his son's faint voice. "Dad, he saved my life." "You wouldn't have seen me alive today if Mr. Aarons hadn't rushed inside the burning building and pulled me out. It was his last day at the base, and he risked his life to save mine, Daddy." Joseph was shocked beyond belief as his eyes widened with anxiety and shame. He had no idea that the man he called Stinker had braved blazing flames to save Kevin's life when a fire broke out at the camp. Tears gushed from Joseph's eyes as he clasped his hands and dropped to his knees, pleading with Mr. Aarons to forgive him. "I am so sorry, Mr. Aarons. Please forgive me. I never believed in sacrifices and thought it happened only in fairy tales." The veteran lifted Joseph and patted him on the shoulders. "Can I please talk to my son for a minute, Mr. Aarons?" Joseph then asked him, "Yes, sure. I'll wait outside." Moments later, Joseph called Mr. Aarons inside and hugged him, offering him to be his grandson Eric's godfather. Mr. Aarons was stunned by such an unusual offer and wondered what made Joseph and Kevin make such a hasty decision. "Because my grandson would have lost his father if you hadn't saved him on time. Even if I showered you with all the money I earned in my lifetime or brought you a mountain of gold, it wouldn't compensate for your bravery and kindness." Kevin recovered shortly after and moved back home for the holidays. Following baby Eric's baptism, Joseph and his family hosted a dinner with Mr. Aarons as their esteemed guest. Joseph raised a toast to honor the selfless veteran who risked his own life to save a fellow soldier's life. "To the man who is not just my son's savior, but my younger brother," he began. "Never judge a book by its cover, I heard people say, but I never knew the depth of that moral until I saw my son alive. I realized that not all heroes wear capes, and I salute the soldier who showed me what kindness and sacrifice are about. Cheers!"